This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's Bladen County Board of Commissioners, May 23rd, 2023 special meeting regarding the consideration of capital outlay request and discussion of proposed 2023-24 budget. This time, I'd like to ask Pastor Cameron McGee if he would to lead some invocation, and then Mr. Mark, you lead some people out.
Lord, we thank you for the privilege of serving you and serving those that put us where we are. Pray we might be faithful to both. God, I pray to give us wisdom to know right from wrong, today when it seems to be so blurry. Pray we do what's right for this county, that you would allow us to be faithful stewards. Thank you for the provision. Thank you for the citizens and their faithfulness. And Lord, I pray that we might be ever faithful to them. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd just like to say real quick, Dr. Mundo's had some surgery on her hand, so she's be out for probably not be out our next meeting. I'm not sure, but I did speak to her today, and she said she was in a little bit of pain, but I was expecting that everything else was going. Turn it over to you this time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. As far as the agenda, just to kind of give you an overview of we tried to circle back on the items that were discussed in a little bit of detail at the last meeting. So, certainly, as you know, if you have others, just at any time, let us know, and we'll be glad to address anything. But the first item of business is to ask you to consider approving the capital outlay request that was removed from the agenda at last week's meeting for the Board of Education.
Motion to approve. Motion to approve by Mr. Brent, second by Mr. Bullock. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. And then moving over to the proposed budget items. The first thing is we always do, we try to track any changes that come to our attention from the proposed budget. And there's just a couple of things I want to bring your attention on. The sheet looks like this. Health Department had additional revenues, restricted intergovernmental revenues, and a decrease in sales and services.
Do we have a
copy of that? Do you not?
Price, from the price.
Okay.
Blue sheets.
That nets out to a positive 910. The building inspections office has to print some material. That's a $1,500 cost. And then JCPC, a decrease of $1,321. So anyway, these are all very minor, as you can see. And we'll continue to keep this, running until you all adopt the budget. The next bit of information is we referenced this chart. The letter related to this is related to the revaluation. And at last week's meeting, we referenced a letter from the Department of Revenue. We have this for you. But what we really wanted to just take an opportunity to do is to provide the information that I referenced related to the sales assessment ratios of other counties that also had a revaluation in 2022. And also the COD, which again is the coefficient of dispersion, just so that you can see, and the ones have a little line beside them that were 2022, but just so you can see that obviously home prices really were increasing last year, or this past year, considerably, because so many counties were in the 80% range, well below the 90% that the Department of Revenue likes for counties to maintain.
Mr. Hester.
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Martin, this is 4 years. You're proposing we do it in 4 years?
That's what the department, we're just sharing information from the Department of Revenue. That's what they like. If you don't meet these requirements, from what I understand from the letter, they like for you to begin initiating the process and have a revaluation effective like 3 years out, the third year following notification by our office.
So the appraisers want to get bad, very bad. It's ridiculous what it's costing to have this done. And now it's still 7, 8 years, now it's 4 years. Recommended days 4?
Well,
That's kind of insane. Is that under 90%?
Well, I think too, in 2 years it can be changed.
That's right.
Well, that's all in this ratio that they're looking at. That's what gets me. They're saying, you're there, saying, and you need to go ahead and plan to do it in 2026. They don't know what's going to be going on 2 years from now, or a year from now.
And the reason I wanted to share that information,
I appreciate their recommendation, but, there's just not a lot of logic in it with the market that is so extremely volatile. The term, it might correct itself. If values do come down, what everybody, all the experts say it's going to in the next couple of years, then it's going to fix itself. Does that make sense? So why in the world will we spend so much money, the taxpayers' dollar here, if it's just a recommendation, it's not a mandatory thing? I just think it's throwing good money after bad.
the reason I wanted to share this from information of other counties is just to help you see that it's not isolated to our county. It really is more of a reflection of the market moving up over the past year. I think as opposed to, values maybe not being so close with the information that he was using based on the year or 2 years, right before the effective date of January. So that's why we're sharing it. It's not etched in stone. So that's why you all need to talk about it.
This
One thing that concerns me, Mr. Martin, is that, and I've used my own son for an example. When you go to Brunswick County, buy a related house in gated community, 30 to 40% less you can in Bladen. And we know that's why several of them work in Bladen, choose to live there because the tax rate's 42 cents, and ours is 78.5 now. Thank God we reduced it from 82. And possibility and increasing that gap even further, to me, just contributes to more of our family loss and people leaving our county. Not being negative, just being realistic.
Just to share some interesting information I just saw yesterday. Brunswick County has just gone through a revaluation process that's effective for 23. So I saw some of their information about revenue neutral and that type of thing. Their property values went up 50, I think it was 54%. And their total value now is over $49 billion. So a penny generates over $4.9 million. And their revenue neutral rate is like 33 something, less than 34. So I think that's right. Those are ballpark numbers anyway, but they've seen a large increase in their assessed value as well, just in the past.
But based on this, they're getting 100% 23.
Because they had rebate, they don't have anything to compare it to yet because of.
I'm trying this. I thought you were going to give the reason. You're going to give us the reason why this is occurring, is just based off this straight data that we're looking at.
That's a good question, and I tried to explain that. You weren't here, I know, at the last meeting, so I'll explain that again. Every year, the Department of Revenue does evaluates a sample of sales in the counties, and it's a trimmed sample, so they pull out certain sales and don't include them or whatever. So when they do that, they compare that to the assessed value of those same properties. And for this past year, 22, we had a sales assessment ratio of 84%. So the assessed value of those homes averaged 84% of the sales price during that year, this past year.
So what I'm saying is, if they're wanting to reevaluate in 4 years, Is they predicting that it's gonna trend upward? They trying to predict which way it's gonna go?
No, I don't know that they're trying to predict it. They're just trying to get the ball. I think they're encouraging counties to get the ball rolling.
Do
What it
a
sounds like.
evaluation, instead we was at 8, then we went to 7, now we're going to 4.
And we went to 7 because our numbers got.
Tell them about the 90%.
Yeah, the 90%, if it falls below 90%, or if you're COD, yeah,
That's the reason.
if you look on this letter right here, Mr. Cogdill, number 1, the median sales ratio of real property, so-and-so falls below 90% or exceeds 110%. Or number 2, the overall trimmed coefficient of dispersion as determined by office is above 25%.
But I'm saying, what indicators can we use to say our house is gonna go up 9%? How we gonna predict that? We do evaluation, what does that mean? Gonna go
Well, I
up
mean,
higher?
the market will determine that. I don't know that there's any way to know.
Our appraiser doing the job adequate?
Yes, sir. That's why I'm showing you that all the other counties that are in a similar situation in terms of time frame, because it's a reflection of the market increasing at a faster than normal level is what one of the factors obviously is contributing to it.
From 22 to now, I shouldn't have dropped 15 daggone %. Houses were just as high as 22 as they are now, pretty close. It shouldn't have never dropped. The problem, I'm thinking the appraisal went right to start with. But what I'm gonna say is, I think we probably need to go and put the money in the budget, so if it happens, we'll be prepared to do it when in 26.
That's kind of what I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask how much time do we have to stall to, like, is it something could be addressed next year if in fact, or do you get the numbers again next year?
Yeah, but it will need to get started about 2 years. About 2 years. But let me I'm just wanting to, just for all clarification, if you'll look at the numbers, like Harnett was 82%, Watauga was 76%. So we're by no means in the lowest. We're kind of right in the range of the other ones. So that had revaluation. Avery County 71%.
What did the last appraisal? The one we just did, what did it call it? It was sky high. What was the appraisal?
Around 600,000.
How much is that?
Maybe I can't remember exactly. Yeah, maybe
$560,000.
I think one thing that we're forgetting here is that the reason ours is bringing what they're bringing is demand versus inventory. We don't have the inventory, and we're working on the inventory. But that's, to me, that's a little deceiving factor there. You put something on the market in a day and sell it in 2 days. That's not fair to the person that's a senior citizen that's trying to hang on to their house with everything else they got to pay. I think you have to look at the whole picture.
And I was just gonna mention that if we decide to do the reevaluation in 26, I think we ought to put out a lot of information for the public to understand why all of a sudden, all over again, we're getting ready to do it all over again. Because I think a lot of people are gonna be put on notice about that. Like, if people don't necessarily follow, they're gonna think, well, man, I just had that done a couple of years ago. And usually 4 years, in people's minds, like seeing a patient, well, I saw a year ago and it was 3 years ago. They're gonna, they might be halfway upset about it, but I just think there needs to be a lot of public, I'm sure y'all feel the same way, education about it.
Maybe I'm missing something. So if we don't have to do the reevaluation, spend $600,000.
Not by law.
All right. If we do it, and they say in 2026, one or two things is going to happen. Either things will have settled, and then all of a sudden, like, well, now we're right, and we didn't need to do the reevaluation. Or we say, my goodness, things have gone up, and so we try to get closer to that 90 to 100%. And then we're in here going, well, we're going to have to do some kind of revenue neutral tax decrease so that we don't up the folks' taxes. And it's a wash, and all we've done is spent $600,000. Something I'm missing.
That's a very good the response that the Department of Revenue would share with you related to that question is that it helps to provide equity for the taxpayers, so that a person who has a home now that, like for instance, you mentioned that your home sales price is going to be a lot more than they're paying their fair share of the tax burden relative to other people. That's one of the main reasons that they cite is it helps to share.
I just think right now we are in such an elevated season, and I don't,
that information shows it. I mean,
and there's nobody out there that's in the know that says this is going to continue. It's got to settle. But just, I mean, already, you know, Charles Ray said, you know, our house is that much higher. From a year ago to 3 months ago, they went crazy, but they're already settling. I mean, they're settling quickly. Things, you know, so you're already sensing that. I just hate for us to jump and do something. You know, how long do we have before we have to? You know, I hate to think a year from now we're going, my goodness, it's already trying to do.
Yeah, you gotta prepare for it. So I'll say something nobody probably else won't say. If we had to do it, the revenue neutral and tax base with, increase in salaries and EMS and things like that, it's not, if you think about it from surviving, it's not, it's not a bad idea. I'll say that. You're gonna have to generate money from somewhere to keep afloat.
If the appraisal closes the gap.
Going like that.
That's if we don't change it and go revenue neutral.
You don't need it. You're not gonna be able to go revenue neutral, that's what I'm saying.
How long have they been doing these coefficients like this that they
A long
send you?
time, yeah.
A long time. Well, tax value when we were kids it was never, I don't think it was never like that. It was always 50 to 100.
Yeah.
If I'm thinking correctly.
You talking about tax rate?
Yeah, when you looked up tax values on
Oh,
property, it was never what they sold at.
Yeah.
Not that I remember.
In tax, well, they have
That's a long time
data is
ago.
so much more easily comparable and.
Well, this is probably a new way to
Yeah.
capture, you know, I mean, I'm just asking, it's just.
It's more real time. I mean, you have more real time information now. It's easier.
First I'm asking is, I heard,
It used to be that.
Mr. McGee speak about 600,000 as a rough figure. If you're looking at this, how soon will you need to put money in appropriation? Where will the money be appropriated from if you decide to reserve fund? Where these funds gonna come from? What line item we can pull from to put in there?
Yes, sir. Each year, historically, each year the county sets aside an amount that hopefully, theoretically, would be about 1/8 of the anticipated cost of the upcoming evaluation. And so for this year, we originally planned, just like we did for this current year, next year, we were planning to set aside $75,000. So what we've done now is set aside $175,000. So that's my whole, that's really how this is a budget issue at the current time, as well as it's a major decision for the board. But here's the thing, I mean, just to kind of help you all know, what we'll try to do, we'll go back and talk to the Department of Revenue, find out exactly how late we can. Because I think last time when we found out that we needed to move it up a year, it kind of put us on fast, hurry up, whatever speed. And I think we had about 18 months to get that one completed. So if we had access to this same information next year before you all needed to pull the trigger to determine whether or not you want to move forward, I know that would be helpful for you.
So what you were saying, you projected, you released it when you were doing the budget, you projected in order to reach the amount, somewhat estimate, do 175.
Yes, sir, that's what.
So if it comes up to an issue, we have the money that's been appropriated budgetary now. And what's coming out fund balance is coming out of.
Well, we'll set it aside out of the operating revenue.
Fund balance, right?
Well, for the amount we're setting aside each year is out of just general revenues.
Okay, what's that generated? So if you set it aside, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
And we've done that for years.
Okay, I guess, but we just raise the amount.
That's
We
correct.
do a 4-year span instead of an 8-year span.
That's right. So I mean, even though we're doing that, doesn't mean that, by any means you're obligated to do it. You just set aside more money.
Right, you get to a point in 4 years, and we don't do it, then we know we got plenty of money, we can just stop setting aside 175, right?
Well,
We keep on setting aside 175.
you just scale it back. At the point you decide you're not going to, we just scale it back.
I just want to make sure there's a line item that we know that line item.
Oh, yeah, that's always, this line item every year.
It may shift.
Right.
So there's data, Mr. Chairman, that says, okay, we missed it by 16%. why the heck we even doing evaluation? Why don't we just use the data, if that's correct, and set the tax,
Because because the data was based on previous years.
I get it, I'm just saying.
If they want to do it like that.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you don't have that information until after the fact. I mean, this is sales that took place the year after.
I know.
But so let me just say this too. So for the way the Department of Revenue looks at things, our what they consider our effective tax rate is 66 cents instead of in the 70s.
Is what it is, I just say it all depends, $100,000 more.
So if it comes in and we can get up to 100% for the revenue neutral part, we may give a lower tax. Is that what we're saying? It goes up to 100%?
If the market it's just like this past time, if the market increased,
Yeah, if it goes up, then we could go back
and we have to share it just like we have the past few times we've had revaluation. We share what the revenue neutral rate is, and that's all made public.
Maybe if it goes up like they want it, well, then you come back and we can just.
It's gonna be a wash
Well, I don't
either
know if
way.
they wanted
Either way,
to. They just wanted
the
to
raise
reflect
tax or
market.
lower tax, if you got a high price, it's gonna be a wash.
That's what I'm saying, but.
Because just for
taxpayers
those
don't
of
look
you,
at those properties.
in 2015, we actually had to raise the tax rate to get to it.
I hate for us to play a part in this balloon that's going on too, to say, oh, maybe we've got to, and we're contributing to it, because it don't come down very often. Because right now things, I mean, houses are selling for way more than they seem to be worth. And I think Ray's right. There's just, if something comes on the market, it's like a game to me. I look every morning and something comes on the market and by night it's under contract. And people are just paying whatever. House sold, went under contract today that sold a year or so ago for like 200,000. It's under contract for 325. It's not, I just can't see that continues. I don't know if it has so many people in Lake County making that much money, but I don't know. Are we going to propagate it just to make it balloon even more? But it is what it is. And I hate to think we're going to put a greater tax burden on our people.
That's not, just to be sure.
That's the only source of income you got to survive with your employees and all the service you have to do. That's the only income you got that can sustain that. So that's, I know you don't want to hear that, but I mean, that's.
Well, I agree. I just don't know that this is.
That's true.
I just don't know that this is accurate. Don't call it 2 years from now if it falls way back off. And time will tell.
Yeah.
I hope so. And keep going up.
Everything else.
Good gracious. Yeah.
We'll talk to the Department of Revenue and circle back with you.
I think, Mr. Martin, before you go further, that's why people need to look hard when you add a 1/4 or 0.5% proposal sales tax. There's 75% of the purchasers that come to this county have paid that fee instead of the seniors and the elderly, and the 70% are probably less fortunate people in this county can benefit from those coming in to spend money. And, but somehow or another, you're not reaching the people to understand why you should support that 1/4 or that 0.5%. That the people coming in to the lake, my business, Line One's business is 90%, 85% of that county, mine's 65%, Fisher's is 75 or 80. I don't know what. I don't understand it, but they find it out fast.
The next item, just point of information, Mr. Elkins checked, and the evacuation maps are required by OSHA. And again, that was just a general figure that Mr. Nathan Dallas had obtained from a company in Fayetteville. So they'll get the work done as cost effectively as they can. But we do need to do that.
Mr. Martin, I knew they were OSHA required. I knew they were mandated, supposed to have them.
Okay.
We don't have one in here. But I was asking something, GIS or someone to do it to save that money, because they're not very complicated to do. You could do it on a printer as far as that goes. That was my question, not whether they were mandated or not, because I knew they were.
Okay. And we used to, I don't know where, they were in the building. I don't know exactly what happened.
What's the cost on this?
Well, $7,000 was set aside for it, just for all the county buildings. But like I said at the last meeting, we want to try to get it. If they can do it in-house, then that's what we'll certainly do.
Should be able to do it anyhow.
I just want to be sure you all know that it is a requirement.
Classes to do it for you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just continuing, Mr. Chairman, I'll just keep going if you're ready.
Yes, sir.
The next thing I wanted to share, the sheriff shared some information, with us today that, is related to you remember there was a request for additional parking at the sheriff's office for, I think it was 25 spaces, and to reseal and stripe the, existing parking lot. There was a $250,000 estimate included in the original budget request. They have obtained more accurate information here just recently. The actual cost for additional parking is now estimated more in the $131,500 range, and the cost to seal and stripe the existing parking lot is $8,500, which is, a big difference. So I just wanted to share that with you for your information. The sealing and striping, I was talking to Grant Payton. He said about every 7 years is a good time frame to do that, and you all know that this coming year will be 7 years since the law enforcement center.
Have we gotten 3 proposals or this?
No, it's just more of a quote is the way I understand it. So we would get more, more accurate pricing.
Those parking spaces, when you come in, the first like going in, you go back straight down the side, sure, on that side, where would they be located?
If it was approved, you come in the driveway, if it's to the left in the wooded area.
Okay.
You
You gotta take and move some of the wood back out of there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna go with.
And I think all that cost is taken into account as well.
Yes.
The other thing that was requested for further discussion, I don't know if you all want to discuss it now or at some point, was the administrative support specialist for Parks and Rec. So I was just trying to.
I'll make a motion, we add that to the budget.
Second. Motion, Mr. Peterson to add the administrative support specialist position for Parks and Rec in the budget, second by Mr. Gillespie. Any discussion?
Yeah, but that position, especially, do we have a out there, what are you gonna be doing? Job description? Why are you giving us $40,000?
We discussed it last meeting with Dog Bill.
I heard that for what, just,
We want to take those 3 recreation people we got and make them programmers, and instead of sitting there answering phone and scheduling athletic events.
Should be like 40 hours.
Yeah.
Adult activities, that was one thing we discussed, adult activities, people are asking and inquiring, and we don't have any.
Okay, so we're talking about just adding a person that would set up activities, do certain things like that.
No, sir, excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
We'll get that shit later.
What we're talking about adding is basically someone to answer the phone, schedule ball fields. They'll be typing, writing up letters that has to go out to the advisory board. They will have, be answering the phones, answer any questions about any programs that are coming into the recreation department. Instead of the 3 people we got now, there's 2 people always out in the park, one person answering the phone. So what you give 3 people to have more people to implement programs, also to be out in the park work. And that way, right now, they are working at night, so they have to take comp time, so that leaves only 2 people in the office most of the time, because you got to get the comp time for working at night.
There were 3 people you'll bring in addition, or this, how many?
3 people, with 3 people doing the programs, active programs, they will have better administration of the program. And then they won't have to take so much comp time off. And then when they do have to take comp time off, there will be still 3 people working. Instead of 2 people.
Here's the deal, Mr. Scott, and I'm gonna be just as polite as I can, but it seems like we're having last week's meeting tonight because you're asking me the same questions that were answered last week. I'm just being honest. Am I being correct? I mean, we really are. We're not progressing a whole lot because of this.
Well, then I just abstain from voting on that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The next item is just, again, circling back on topics of discussion from the last meeting. Just want to remind you, there is an allocation equal to 3% of a cost of living adjustment that's in the budget that Mr. remind you the figures, that chart there shows it. We have been trying to survey surrounding counties and local towns to see what they're proposing. Columbus County is proposing a 3% cost of living. Now, I don't know what will take place. Again, this is the proposal. Cumberland County, their information will be available later this week when the budget's proposed. Robinson County is proposing a 3% cost of living adjustment. Sampson County is doing a pay study. They don't have the information yet, but they're going to do their best to provide funding to implement that when it's available. The town of Elizabethtown is doing a 3% cost of living adjustment. They're also considering additional compensation for fire and law. They want to be where the county is what the town managers, where he'd like to be with police officers. And then the town of White Lake is doing a 2.5% cost of living plus merit. And then just to speak to, I know there was discussed deputies and a request related to that. This information, and I just want to say, these are starting salaries from the best information we could gather. However, from there, things can change in terms of at what point they receive raises, that type thing from there. So, and I'll give you a good example. The town of Elizabethtown, that's for just a starting new person. If somebody has higher levels of years of service, if they have a 4-year degree, then it goes up. They also only have a 6-month probationary period, and then they get a 5% raise after that. So, like I'm saying, these are just the starting salaries, but and that is for starting deputies and detention officers. That's currently. So I don't know what's other than the information we shared about the cost of living adjustments and that type of thing. I don't know if other things take place or not.
So, there's we're fifth out of the 5 counties here showing, or towns and counties. We're fifth. There's 4 ahead of us. The detention officers, I mean, I thought was pretty good there for a salary.
And I just want to say one thing. A lot of thanks goes to the efforts you made this past year for this, when you approved the increases or whatever. But again, like for instance, that put us in a competitive state. But during the year, I think was it like in December or late in the year, Robinson raised theirs up. So they're now you can see they're right there with where Bladen is as well. So there's been a lot of movement just in the past year.
Mr. Chairman, I thought Sampson County they were actually not doing a percent. I thought they were doing a blanket number.
I don't know I'm not sure what on that. When I talked to they're doing a pay study is what the manager told me. I don't know the amounts or whatever. He said it's still under, still being worked on, so I don't have any specifics.
So, would it be in order to do like we last year to give slightly more of an increase to sort of what E-Town's thinking, the law and the fire, whatnot, just to continue to make that? And EMS, absolutely, alter it.
5%.
So that we continue to try to pay if nothing else.
So, Mr. Chester.
Yes, sir.
So, I personally want to sit on this and think about it a little bit longer, but I do need to know what EMS and the rest of them's pay is and scale and stuff. I mean, we need to look at the harder employees to hire and retain so that we can make the best decision we can on this thing. I mean, we've got to be somewhat competitive.
I feel the same way as Mr. Peterson. I'd rather see 5% and retain the work, hard work, training, and we heard EMS last week, constantly hear from the sheriff's department. I think they've lost some already and some more that's already looking. It's just competition. And the time and effort and the money we spend in the training and then lose.
So, Mr. Martin, I will say that this is reoccurring expenses, and talk about appraisals, reappraisals and stuff, eventually, that's where it's gonna have to come from. I mean, whether you wanna agree with me, say, talk about it, it's a fact. So, we need to think about all those things too.
And I think, Mr. Chairman, that Mr. Martin, and you've had the phone calls that I've got. That's why all the brains need to try to get together and determine some other way of raising revenue other than just property tax. The people that's don't own property get the free ride. Don't mean it ugly, just telling it like it is. And so many of those is the ones that don't want to support the 1/4 or the 0.5% or whatever. And you got a lot of people pushing them, encouraging them not to do it. That's costing all the homeowners.
Well, no, I mean, that's true, but that's, in a whole lot we do about that. We tried it about 8 or 9 dang times. It failed every daggone time. Unless the good Lord comes here and
Mr. Cogdill, this is.
shocks this county, I don't know how to do it.
Mr. Cogdill, we didn't talk about this last week, if you want to kind of.
fine with it, whatever y'all got going on, fine with it.
All right.
Ain't got, I'm fine with it.
I agree, and I would love to keep giving raises as much as we can, but not making the money that other counties are making is not the only reason people are leaving this county. We need to do a better job of getting our supervisors, department heads, and everybody else to treat people decent, and they might stay. Because people are not leaving just because they ain't making good money. Y'all can say what you want to say. There's departments in this county that needs to learn how to treat the employees. And until we do that, we're going to leave them. How much money you give? They're going to keep leaving. So that's what we need to work on for retention, is get people in the positions that know how to treat people, and they'll stay. Now, you can give all the money in the world, but if I'm going to get treated bad at my job, I'm leaving. I don't care how much money I'm making. So that's another thing we need to think about.
Sure,
All over the county.
I agree with the rest we said. There's, seems like especially in the last year, the morale, and you maybe think, well, it's COVID, well, you know, but the morale of our employees just seems to be settling it a little bit, a little more discontent.
That's exactly right. So money ain't gonna solve the problems we got.
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting, and I, you know, I mean, I haven't been maybe as privy to some of that, but ADOT, I hate to say it, workforce morale across the board is hurting, period. I mean, it's not just the county sector, it's, I had a girl tell me the PA here, and we all know her and love her to death. She's like, man, I'm just worn out with serving the public. And I hate, you know, but I think it's what this whole country's been through with COVID, and people are worn out. Every sector, you hear Wake County, they can't find sheriff deputy. State Highway Patrol, they can't find anybody. Forestry Service can't find anybody. And it's not all just Bladen County. I don't make as much as they do in Brunswick. I guess I'm going to leave. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. There's a lot of issues there for whatever reason. So yeah, the more optimistic we can do, the better. But it's a complex thing. I don't know. You know, it's hard to say.
There's no doubt, but a lot of it's self-inflicted. A lot of it is, our hands are tied, you can't do that. It's the government that we live in today. A lot of it, not all of it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
It seems like to me, if you're having problems like that, I'm not saying it's not there, but how is the employee appraisals coming along? Who does the appraisals? You know, you do the appraisals, that should get staffing back in order. We're doing great appraisals. Because if, you know, when I was working, man, you did appraisals on individuals. And then you get in and discuss the appraisal with that employee. Are we doing appraisals timely and are they effective?
We do. Annual appraisals.
Now, you know what? thing didn't worth a whole heck of a lot. I mean, when I done the DuPont, we would let them do their appraisals and then we agree or disagree.
Oh, yeah.
There's not a whole lot of honesty in a peer evaluation.
Well, we need to make it honest. Because
All right or wrong?
that's how you improve your employees. When I was employed, you did appraisals and if appraisal didn't come out right, out of here you go.
Don't care, they just don't come back to see you. Isn't that right, Terry? They don't come back, yeah. You're action, you know.
I think just to talk about that, but we're not in the,
I know,
not out in the field, and a lot of times your hands are tied and you almost can't dismiss an employee no more.
I agree with what you're saying.
And,
But it's
you ain't got, I know, I agree with you, but what I'm saying is you can't hardly dismiss the employee, and you can't afford to let them go really, because you ain't got nobody to work.
I was just gonna say something though. I do support law enforcement. I think what they go through on a daily basis, I think the past several years, it has gotta be so tough when it's just gotta be, and you know, I see a lot of those folks and they're worried about what they do and how they do it.
Yep.
And who you stop, you don't know what they're gonna do to you the moment you stop them. It's I'm sure y'all agree. I mean, I think they ought to be paid more money. I mean, me personally. And I see your point that you get a little scared that you're like, well, what can we do? And fiscally be responsible, but I mean, those folks do deserve to make
I'm
more
not
money.
against it, but I'm just saying we got other problems besides money. I'm saying.
Money's reoccurring.
I know, I'm saying.
And I agree with Mr. Gillespie, and, if you had a place of business downtown, and Mark is downtown for years, I have county employees come in to me. I'm sure Mark does, I'm sure Charles Ray gets. And from supervision right on down to the employee, but I got an open door policy as a commissioner. But the one thing I don't like, and I try to listen to both sides of the story, but I don't like when retaliation is held. Just because somebody comes to talk to me about a problem. And I don't want to hear retaliation is held coming to me. But then I want to talk to everybody. And I feel like that's not me becoming a human resource. I'm the one that hires human resources or has a part in it. But there's an open door policy at my store, and I'm going to listen to both sides. But I don't like to see people that have been there 10, 15, 20 years who think you've done a good job and they've been praised and praised and praised. But then all of a sudden they're up and they're gone because they felt like they followed all the rules and the regulations. But now they had to go up and leave. I got a problem with that, seriously. And we need to get a handle on it. And I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm just trying to be mindful of what he said. And sounds like we're sitting here trying to face up and state what the issues and the problems are. That's a serious situation.
I agree with Commissioner Gillespie said and everything, but when I was employed, I had to deal with appraisal and a union. That was rough. It was rough, dealing with a union and appraisal. You had to make sure you got your stuff right. Because we had to deal with the union as well in the store.
I think Gillespie said it is on track. I think we can't just throw money at the problem, but it goes back to what can we do to improve morale. I know we did some flex time and hours and things like that. But I do know, our employees, I had no idea they realized how things work, but I was early last year and I went through a traffic stop about midnight on 41. About 3 deputies were there and they ended up all coming to my Jeep. And I thought, man, I'm getting ready to go to the Hooscow. And, but they all came over, they reached in, they shook my hand, they said, thank you for what you guys did for us. I didn't know they knew who I was. So we do have a lot more power than we probably think to help the morale financially by helping them, but also by we don't want it to be a hostile work environment. We don't want, whether it's, putting people through training that it's maybe a little more woke than Bladen County really is, or expectations that are unrealistic or whatever. I just think we need to figure out ways not just to throw money, but throw, to really help boost the morale, because we do have some things going for us that these other places don't. We have that small town, whatever, that's great, but it also can be very problematic with the drama, because everybody does know everybody, and all that stuff.
anything we can do to help that, I think is a good thing.
Those are the issues that we bring back to you, and anything else we're glad to discuss.
Mr. Martin, Mr. Edson, couple things I got. When we get the playground out there done, I think we still got some federal funds, our money's left. Let's make sure we get that fence back up when it's, ready to go. And it's pretty close. Kids are playing on it.
I know.
It's close.
I'll go ahead and give you a tentative date of June 20th for the, ribbon cutting or whatever, grand opening, whatever.
So, Mr. Martin, I don't know if you have it there or not, and I looked for it, and I can't find it. The difference in, what did we cut away from the community college? Do you remember?
Well, we provided, we moved 75,000 that they requested, the community college requested in current expense. We moved to capital because they were one-time items, or one-time or capital items, a vehicle and then a master facilities plan.
Hey, gentlemen, Mr. Mark.
118.
Yeah, but it's an additional,
For the school one, I think.
well, the top, at 118 is current expense at the top, Bladen Community College.
What I think?
Yes, sir.
What's that, 87?
It went from,
Public schools? Okay.
it increased almost $100,000 plus the 75 on current expense, from 1,177 to 1,274,831 plus the 75 plus 400. What was it, Lisa? 560. Okay. So that's why the capital request you see of 487,200 is 562, because that's where the 75 is.
The rest is 22% of what Mr. Mark.
Yes, sir. That's right. That includes that 75.
This sheet right here that you originally give us, is that what they asked for? 704,000?
704, that probably maybe counting the capital. I don't
Ends up
have.
giving with a five. Trying to find out what we cut out of
The current
capital.
expense, we didn't cut anything out of capital. No,
Where's the $180,000 cut from their proposal?
I think there is $180,000.
108.
108.
I subtracted it wrong.
No, you may have been counting that, you were probably counting that 75,
I mean, I didn't.
which went to capital. And that's why it's more than the request.
So, well, let me ask you this then. Where's the 108 that they, what was the 108 gonna go to toward?
I don't know exactly. I mean, they have a number of things that are already in place, and that's why we increased it as much as we did.
Mr. Martin, that's why it was a check too. That's a lot of it. The carryover took care of some things. There was things that were planned out 2 and 3 years in advance and hadn't been completed, so the money was still.
I bumped in a couple of board members, and they were asking me, why couldn't we fully fund it? And I'm trying to find out what we weren't funding.
And that's really it's hard for us to say. But I think it was about a 14%. 14% increase, was that counting counting 75, that was a 14% increase. It was a 10% increase this year. Plus the cap post, we did another 400 on the capital.
Mr. Martin, as the representative on the board at the college, after that got broken down, just like Mr. Pearson was asking, as well as some of the board members that spoke to me, they were more in line with what we actually did than the 22%. I think everybody pretty well won and satisfied.
Motion adjourned.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Mr. Chair.